New news. MCP is actually useful. In this episode, find out how we can implement a whole new company in 10 minutes through MCP.
In this example, I chose Claude Sonnet 3.4.5, which was sufficient for all the tasks that I asked it to do. I also did ground it on learn.microsoft.com. Here are the set of instructions in here. I'm asking the MCP agent to go create a new company. Since I know what I want, I've asked it to name it in a very specific way, to assign it the minimal fields that are necessary to create a company, which is set the time zone, set all the basic fields right there. And also, I've asked the agent to go and at the end of all the processes that it does, to go ahead and switch working in that newly created company. So the company creation process is very straightforward. So the agent was able to go and navigate what it needs to do based on the documentation. And it has created the record. Now it is set in the time zone and it is figuring out what the time zone options are. So just like an user would click on a drop down, it knows that there will be some values and it figures out which values need to be set in there. The agent did get the response that it did switch to the correct legal entity, and it will proceed working from there. So here's the second thing I'm asking it to do. I want to configure the system, the company to be an American company, to use the American dollars, and in an empty company account, that is very necessary. You basically will not have these records unless you're creating them in a demo data company. So I've asked the system if there are no records like this, create records for the currency and also do other things like set up the different types of exchange rates. These are specific tasks that ERP wants me to do. And what you see on the screen is, in the middle of the screen is the way the MCP server presents the forms and different menu structures back to the LLM. LLM knows based on the documentation what it needs to do and how to navigate and accomplish certain tasks. I love the ideas that my colleagues Fred and Sean are bouncing off each other, and I love the idea of grounding it on the BPM, so business process library that we have. So it did create all of the different things, and now we are proceeding to creation of the things that are necessary for general ledger to work. General ledger is an accounting concept, and it measures flow of business activity in money, typically over time. So right now we're just creating a calendar. It's going to be a fiscal calendar that starts on January 1. And I'm asking the system to go, or the agent to go and create the calendar. What it did is it navigated and figured out, oh, there is already a calendar. I'm doing this in the default demo data. So, but if you didn't have a calendar, the instructions would be exactly the same. Next step is I'm asking it to create a chart of accounts. You could do it several different ways. You could always import it through the data management framework. You could key in your chart of accounts manually, like I've done in the previous video. And I'll link it in the card once I publish this video. So you can see how easy it is to create a chart of accounts. And you could ask also the agent to key in the accounts one by one. In this case, I did ask the agent to go and inherit the chart of accounts from my other companies. So it's from the shared chart of accounts. And these are the specific segments for balance sheet and profit and loss. So I didn't have to create that manually. And as I see some companies who are growing by acquisitions, sometimes they just mandate the standard chart of accounts, which makes everything clear, like consolidations and comparing financial performance from one to another. So that's what the system is doing. It is assigning, basically adopting these segments that have number of chart of accounts, and it's activating these accounting structures. It is usually a fairly involved process, so you do have to wait a few minutes, even if you're clicking through the UI. And the system is figuring out the necessary steps and also does validations, surprisingly. So if through the course of the working with the form, it does take a look and determines that, oh, probably one of the segments was not actually activated. Let me go ahead and actually make sure that it's activated, and it figures out the way to do it through the menu. At the end, it gives me a good recap, say, of what has been achieved and the status of this implementation. So we're already quite ahead. So now we have the calendar defined, we have currency defined, we do have the chart of accounts ready to go. Now, what I'll do is I've pasted the instructions to go create number sequences. Think of number sequences as the way I number things. So there are multiple things that need to be numbered in an accounting system, and in manufacturing, any kind of reporting system needs IDs. So in this case, I need to create the numbering schemas for vouchers, general ledger transactions, how my journals will be numbered. And that's exactly what I've instructed the system to do. What you as a user can do, you could use the wizard. So the wizard, it comprehensively creates all of the accounting numbering schemas for every module there is. It's the easiest thing to do. I did go and decide to do just the absolutely bare minimum. So at the bare minimum, I just need 4 number sequences to run. And what the system is doing is creating these numbering schemas and assigning it to the correct places where they can be used. So this makes sure that my journals have numbers, my vouchers have numbers, that I am able to have the audit trail, and the system does the recap of the job that it has done, and it demonstrates to me in a clear way which it has created. So at the end of every step, I like that it creates a recap for me. This is a good human readable, understandable, and also probably printable way to validate the work of the system without even going to the UI. So next step, what we're doing is we're creating a journal. Journal is a concept in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. This serves different purposes. In this case, it is a general purpose journal, which is designed for accountants to go punch in transactions. You could have different types of journals to work with inventory values. You could have typical defaults in there. If, let's say, you're doing electricity payments every time, you could default general ledger accounts. If you're doing currency exchange, you could have a different set of settings for that, and you could have them numbered in a different way. So I need, for purposes of taking the implementation from literally nothing, no settings, to the first transaction, I just need at least one journal. And that is what the system has just created. That journal, think of it as the way to enforce the rules and some logic into how I enter transactions. So this is the drum roll. And now the system goes and creates the first transaction. So it's a single line transaction in my fictitious 3D printer Etsy store business, what it does, it registered that the owner of the business, when founding the business, has basically transferred his own 3D printer into the assets of the company. So what it does, it creates a transaction with debits and credits as a single line, and the system figures out a way to go and actually validate the voucher. So the it double checks everything. If you have inconsistencies there, since it has basic understanding of what's going on, if it will notice a weird sign or a mismatched description, it will actually prompt you to go and ask you, what do you want to do, if there are exceptions. So that's what I love about the agent, because it could have a back and forth. If there's data missing or there is an exception, it will actually tell you. So right now I asked the Copilot through the instructions to click the validate button, because I know what to do. I don't need to say which button to click. I could say, hey, just validate the journal. It will figure it out what it needs to do based on the documentation and its understanding of business of the business processes. So right now the system is waiting for the input to be processed, and it waited, and now it validates whether everything went correctly. It figures out, oh, the journal has changed to read only because it has posted. I cannot do anything to the journal anymore. I could only create a new one. And then I asked it to provide a recap, and it did provide the recap, and as instructed, it has inserted the champagne emoji at the end. This is what I've been wanting for a few weeks now, by experimenting with ethanol, just a glass of champagne. So now let's take a look and validate. This is the drum roller, and there was no company account like that. And with the company account newly created, we could see the workspace, and I could navigate to the general journals. And in the posted general journals, I could see that, yeah, there was one journal that was posted. And that was exactly what I asked the agent to do. So now you have seen how we took it from literally empty to the first transaction.